What's up, everybody? Clinton Foshee here, Front Porch Chronicles, last episode of 2023, and we're going out with a bang. We've got on today the Vanilla Gorilla, aka Christian Echols. He is from my home state, Sweet Home, Alabama. He's originally from Cullman, trains in Birmingham. We'll get into that training and all of that in just a little while. Christian, let me ask you first thing. I always get every time I go to a promotion. Do you get what is the best Alabama joke? Do you get?
Man, honestly, I haven't heard a whole lot.
Really? I always get the have you dated your cousin? I always get the do y'all sit around in rocking chairs? And I'm from Montgomery, as you know. The only thing rocking there are AK-47s. There ain't no rocking chairs. If it is, it's way out in the backwoods.
Well, where I'm from, that's all there is. It's full of it. I'm from a country town.
But I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you got some big news we'll get into a little bit later that you're getting ready for. But let's start off. How was Christmas? How was everything?
Man, it was great. I got my daughter for a couple extra days. You know, I get every other weekend right now. It works really good for my schedule. I get to spend time with her and stuff, and I get her here and there in between. But got to spend like extra 2 to 3 days with her. So
yeah,
that was a good score. But getting to see my family, man, I don't really get to see my family a whole lot because I train in Birmingham and I train in Decatur. And if you're not from Alabama, so I live in Cullman in the middle. One gym's 45 minutes this way, the other one's 45 minutes
45. This way. It's quite. I trained with. I'll get into. I trained with Elkins way back in the day when he was out in the backwoods. Yeah. And so I kind of went. It was the same thing for me. I trained with Khalifa and them in Birmingham. I kind of went all over. Whenever we had fight camps or somebody was getting ready for a fight or whatever. Speaking of the family, how's your dad doing?
Man, he's doing really good. He was big into competing and stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, he was a fighter for a long time, but then he started doing just jiu-jitsu. Man, his business has just started thriving the last 3 or 4 years, and he's just been like, he's dead set on making that money. So he still does jiu-jitsu, but it's not like he used to.
If it don't make dollars, it don't make sense. It's funny. Yeah. Once I got out of fighting and went into jiu-jitsu, and then I had a car wreck a couple of years ago that totally took me out of training at all, that I'm still working on. But it's crazy how your mind has to shift into business, and some people can't do that. Some people can. So let me ask you. You talked about your daughter. I wanted to ask, how did having a daughter affect or change your mindset as a person and as a fighter? Did it kind of kick you in the ass and say, "Hey, if I'm gonna do this, I need to do this"?
Man, it really kind of like. So when my daughter was born, I was going through a rough stage of my life. I talked about it after the Bellator fight, but man, I had my daughter and I was on drugs and stuff, and I was partying a lot, and I didn't really quit after she was born at first. I mean, I know that sounds terrible, not something that you want to say on the interviews, but man, I didn't quit for a while, and then I had the overdose experience, and like that moment right there made me sit back and be like, whoa, I don't want my daughter to grow up and like have everyone in her school and everywhere, like, let's say they get mad at her. They're like, well, at least my dad didn't overdose on drugs, like just little stuff like that. I don't want my daughter to grow up knowing that her dad was a loser and stuff. So I sat in the hospital bed and I was like, I vowed to never touch drugs again. Like having my daughter at that moment really kicked that into gear and helped me change my life. So I wouldn't say having my daughter, but like her being in my life and me wanting the best for her is what really changed me into like go mode of like, hey, let's go fight these dudes and let's go make a name for me and her and take care of my family.
Yeah, man, I commend you. It's funny. My similar story. I had a lot of trauma abuse as a kid, and I did everything in the world to try to not deal with it. Similar drugs. Women was my drug. just to be honest, you know what I mean? And
I
did everything. Yeah, I did everything to numb it, everything to divert. And my youngest daughter coming into the picture really shifted my mindset, similar to it really made me say, hey, you know what? I needed therapy. I overdid everything because I was trying to overcompensate for everything that I wanted and needed. And nothing was ever good enough. Like for me, I've won world championships. I've won Pan Ams. I've trained with some of the best fighters in the UFC. And these guys are like, oh man, you're really good. You know, you're this and you're this. But in my mind, coming from trauma and abuse, and we all have whatever, I never thought or felt like anything was good enough. So I was overtraining. I was overdoing. So I commend you, especially at such a young age, to make a change in your life and be and do better. And especially in this business, because I deal with a lot of guys in the UFC, fighters, all the time. And one of the things that people run away from or are emotions, feelings, and all of those things that we need to talk about, because otherwise we hold them in, they become cancerous to us. So
I have that same problem with, and I can kind of get more into this later when we start talking about, if we discuss my last fight, but women are my drug too. And I recently figured that out, and I was dating a girl that I freaking loved, man. I head over heels over this girl. She took care of me. You know, as a fighter, I don't make a whole lot of money. She does make a lot of money. She does help people out. Like, everything was great, but man, when I start getting into that life of like dating girls and stuff, I lose my damn mind. And then next thing you know,
same for me. That's why I said I kind of learned to cut ties, because some people are dangerous too. Getting into your training. I know you train kind of all over, but more specifically, 10th Planet, Birmingham. Straight up dogs. I trained with Matt Elkins way back in the day, Strike Hard days, Straight Dog, Flearoy Brown, Travis Thomas, Matt Scaff, and all of the crew there. Straight up, I haven't had the luxury of coming in there and training, but I keep up with, and I know people that know people, and I know all of these dudes are straight up dogs. I want to ask you a question though. The environment there seems super dope. Like, it's like you guys are training and getting the work in and getting the grind stuff in, but you also find the balance of being able to be playful, being able to joke, and kind of that. So how is the environment, and what do you think?
Yeah, so man, I trained at Gracie Baja with you for a while.
Yeah.
So that was really what made me change gyms. Was I went to 10th Planet Decatur before 10th Planet Birmingham was a thing. Matt Elkins was at 10th Planet Decatur doing a striking class.
Who runs Decatur?
Brandon McCaffrey.
Yeah.
He is a wizard.
Have you gone to Huntsville?
No.
You should go up there. Eric Al, he actually trained at in Birmingham at GB. He runs 10th Planet up in Huntsville.
Okay. Well, I ain't went up. I mean, I've heard Brandon talk about him before.
Yeah,
Man, I went up there and trained, and like the environment went from being like gi and no gi days and like very like traditional jiu-jitsu to I went to 10th Planet Decatur, and Brandon just has this open environment where it's like, hey man, come in, have a good time. Don't be a douchebag. Don't like bully, like have fun, do jiu-jitsu. Talk about whatever, freaking, it's an open environment to speak on anything you want in front of anybody. And like, of course you got your jiu-jitsu guys that smoke weed, and like they're over there high, and like nobody cares. There's cops that train with us.
It's funny because here in California it's legal. So all of my friends from Alabama, when they come out here, not all of them, I ain't gonna throw nobody on the butt, but some of them, when they come out here, the first thing they want to do is go to the weed shop. But,
yeah, for sure. And like, man, it's just such a cool environment, and like it's me, Travis, Scaff, Chase Myers, and one other guy at 10th Planet Decatur, we do strength conditioning there on 2 days of the week. And like, man, like you said, it's like an environment where like me and Travis will be like cutting up, picking at each other, and then 2 seconds later, we're on the ski machine just ripping that thing, going hard, like getting to that dark place where you're just like, man, you want to quit so bad. And like Scaff, our strength conditioning coach, what's cool about it is he does the workouts with us. He doesn't like sit on the side and be like, you guys are doing great, keep going. He's right beside us freaking ripping that ski machine or on the bike, whatever. And, man, it's just the dopest environment I've ever been as far as the MMA gym. It's between like our gym and Killcliff, man, they're both just like great family environment. And then it like can turn serious quick. And then like once the work is done, it's right back to family environment.
Yeah, it's similar to, I know when me and Hoffa trained together at GB, HQ, or regular, like when we're training, you would think there's like, these guys don't like each other, but it's our job to get people ready for fights. And so it's like during that time, it's work time, it's go time. I love you to death. I love you enough that I'm putting myself in this situation for us to beat each other up, to make us better for the next fight that we have coming up. So how long have you been training there?
10th Planet Decatur, like actually both gyms, about 2.5 years.
Okay, sweet.
And 10th Planet Birmingham is where I spar, which is where Matt's at, and that environment is like that. It's like last night we started a new training session on Wednesday. We spar on Wednesday nights, and me and this guy named Ricky, he's about to turn pro. He's a great amateur fighter. Man, we started trading at the end of a round, and like we was like, hey, let's let it eat. So we was like slipping and throwing bombs, and like as soon as the round was over, we dapped each other and was like, hell yeah, boy, let's go.
Yeah.
And I think we have a lot of fighters that's doing good stuff around. Alabama's kind of like held back from the MMA scene in a sense. Like there's not a whole lot going on. There hasn't been a whole lot go on. We've had a few select fighters, but we're really making some noise right now. We're trying our best to just like build a freaking massive gym just full of dogs, and it's going good so far.
Yeah, I go back to, and I was a late bloomer and I only had a couple of fights, but I look back and I know we talked about earlier, back when I did my thing, it was strike hard and there was really kind of nothing else. People would pop up. I know you said you fought on another promotion, but I mean, for me, we talked about money, man. How much did you make your first fight?
First fight, I made $350.
And who did we talked about this earlier? Who did you fight?
I fought Trayshawn Greer, who the very next fight went to the Ultimate Fighter, and this is my first pro fight. Went to the Ultimate Fighter the next fight, almost won the season, had a knee injury, wasn't able to be in the finale. Dana White was so impressed they gave him a contract in it, and I was like,
and you fought him for what, $350? So that's that's one of the things I kind of, as I'm becoming more successful, one of the things that I kind of really wanted to do was put on for the state of Alabama, because they've always been held back in that sense. I know even back in strike hard days, I know for the first like 3 fights, you had to wear like shin guards and all of this stuff, which I'm not knocking that. And I'm not knocking the safety aspect of it and whatever. But bro, if you want to get in there and bare knuckle or do whatever you want to do, you should be able to do it. I understand for their point, they want, regulations and legal liability and whatever. But the state of Alabama, I always tell people, we're good at football, fighting, and making babies. I got a bunch of babies going back to, I'm pretty good. I was pretty good at football, pretty good at fighting. But the state of Alabama, we've had Eric Anders, we've had Walt Harris, we've had a couple of other guys kind of up and coming, but I really want to, for me, start pouring into the state, pouring into guys, and kind of reason why I wanted to have you on here, kind of help guys like you that are up and coming, kind of make a name for themselves and make a way for themselves, because, you put a lot of work in and you deserve it. I know one of the you got a luxury that some people don't have. Speaking of a couple of big time guys from Alabama, I know you get the luxury of training with big ticket Walt Harris. Every time I say his name, I have to say R.I.P. Anaya. He went through a very traumatic situation with his daughter. Still, every time I talk about it or bring it up, it's kind of heavy. Shout out to him. I know I remember training back in the day with him on the strike hard circuit. He was always, dude, he's such a nice, loving, caring, friendly guy.
Yeah.
But I still wouldn't, I won't forget the right hook I caught one time. And I was like, man, this guy hacks a wallop of a punch. So let me ask you, how is it being able to kind of be led by or be trained by a guy that has been to the UFC and been a headline fighter?
So I don't train with him anymore. We had a little falling out. He trains at SBG, but
what happened there?
So
see what had happened was spill the tea.
So Eric is my manager.
Yeah.
And I went over. He had asked me to come over there and start training with him some. So I went and trained with him. Started sparring on certain days. He didn't like that people weren't in SBG uniform. Like freaking. And that's another thing I like about the 10th Planet system is like you can walk in there with a Gracie Baja shirt on, and Brandon's like, "Come on in, bro. You're family."
Yeah.
Well, the guy that runs the gym, he had, I guess, started feeling some type of way about me wearing like Superman rash guard and then like my blackout barbell shirts that I usually wear that I'm sponsored by. Anyways, he after class one day, he just said some things to the group as a class.
But about you?
Huh?
But about you?
They were so hardcore directed right at me, dog. And like everybody knew it. And like at one point he even said, and I'm not really like necessarily mad at him. I just don't know how he feels about it because I quit going. But he was like, unless you're sponsored by Superman, don't wear that shit in my gym. Like he said it a lot differently, but I'm going to leave it like that. And I just, after I left, I told Travis, me and Travis was both going over there to spar. And I told Travis, like, man, I just don't think I'm going to go back. I didn't like that. I don't like being talked to like that. As a man, I just, and like some people are cool with that. I just personally don't.
I'm not.
I left it at that and I didn't go back. And then Eric thought I was still training there. And he had texted me and I was like, hey, man, I ain't been back. And then the guy that owns their gym come up with the rule that like they can't do any kind of cross training. So I think that's kind of just put off the table. But I am still friends with Eric. He's obviously my manager. I'm still friends with Walt. And I don't have any kind of hard feelings towards the coach. I just like in that moment I was upset. I made a choice and I had to stand on that.
Yeah, look, I'll tell you this. One thing a man always has to stand on, and that's respect.
I'm all about respect.
Bro, I'm the exact same way, 100%, 365. I can't deal with disrespect, and it doesn't matter. And I deal with some of the biggest names in the UFC. I don't care who, what, when, where, why. Like respect is something for me. There's a no giveaway. So, but I will say this. I commend you for handling it that way instead of making it a drama fest, because a lot of people in this industry and in this sport specifically get very emotional.
I typically do, but I have mad respect for this coach. So I was like, hey, you know what? I'm just going to walk away and like just respect him. This is his place. Like,
and things happen, and you like in the same sense, we have to respect also what people want. Like I can respect. I've had people come to me and say, hey, I don't like the mullet. Okay, cool. I'm glad you don't like the mullet, but look, it's not going nowhere. Like, so you sometimes you have to, step away. So I commend you by that. Going into being managed, I know you said another thing I was going to ask you about the luxury of being managed by your boy Eric Anders. I saw him a few weeks back in Austin, Texas. The UFC was there. They were doing a VIP event, and I went with Hoffa, and I saw Eric in there, so I got the chance to catch up with him and rap a little bit with him. I know he's originally from Texas, so we kind of talked about Texas. I told him I was thinking about maybe moving to Austin. We're kind of still debating on it. We'll see. But let me ask you, how is it learning from or being able to be in business with somebody that has been in the UFC, successful in the UFC, and knows the business going on with the UFC? Because that, I'll tell you now, is a big, big deal. Going back to, I know tons of guys, like you said, that get paid the UFC don't pay them $350, but they still pay them pennies when they don't have proper management and all of that stuff. So how is it being able to learn the business from him?
Man, it's been super awesome. It's kind of opened up my eyes because, I fought Trayshawn Gore for $350 my first fight. Then I fought an oversized 185er the next fight against Derek Overstreet.
Yeah.
And I lost both of those fights. And then I come to realize I started getting around some smarter people. I started working with Matt, and just like getting to see Matt is something that Eric was teaching me, but I kind of learned it from Matt a little bit too, is you don't have to fight MFers every fight. You ain't got to fight the baddest of the bad every fight, and it sounds super. I know a lot of people that aren't fighters, and I don't take any offense to if somebody's like, oh, so and so fought a guy that's 3-10, I'm like, hey, look, when people say that in front of me, I'm like, hey, you got to respect that guy. Like, he's building his career. He's logging flight hours. He's figuring out different timing. He's doing all these things, even though he's fighting a guy that's trash. Like, he's getting hours, and then when he gets in there to fight that MFer in the next fight or 2 fights later, then he's got flight hours logged in. He's not rusty. He's like, his timing's good. And I think that's a secret part of the game that, obviously everybody at the big leagues has figured out. Aside from the Russians, I think the Russians, they still get after it. They still fight whoever.
I don't like them. I don't like the Russians. Let it be known. I don't like the Russians. I'm Team Brazil, Team USA. They laugh at me. People laugh at me all the time. They say I'm going to bring out my Ronald Reagan shirt because I'm not a big fan of the Russians. No disrespect to them, but disrespect. They're just not my cup of tea in person. They're not the nicest guys to deal with or whatever. But going back to your point, it's funny. I talk to Hoffa all the time. He's, I think, at 45 fights. He's been doing it 15 years. He has the UFC record for most hours in the octagon. I think it's over 9 hours now. That's just his pro career. That's just his pro career. That's not considering, this last interview I did with him on the podcast. He was saying there were times that he was fighting 2, 3, 4 times a week in Brazil for $200 a fight, which is insane. But it's going back to, it's always funny to me because everybody, and I talked to Hoff about this specifically about Twitter, and we were laughing because we're always together and we're always laughing at Twitter and we're always on Twitter. And I was like, bro, I gotta ask you, because he'll post something, and for me, it's hard for me. I guess it's my Alabama roots, it's whatever. But I feel like I have to say something back, or I have to argue with somebody or whatever. I've learned from him. He was telling me, he was like, bro, whenever I post something, I do something, he was like, bro, I put my notifications on silence. He was like, I don't even I go check it whenever I want to go check it. But UFC fans and people, especially that don't know anything, it always blows my mind. And this is why, like, people be like, oh, you should come watch the fights at our house. No, I'm busy. I'm sorry. No disrespect. Because it drives me insane. I've only had 2 fights. I'm 1-1 before I chalked up and got out. I was an old man. I was 37 years old whenever I jumped in there a couple of times, and it is what it is. But when people, oh, he fought somebody 3-10. Okay, well, tell me how many people you fought.
Yeah.
Oh, he should get up, bro. I promise you. Look at me. I promise you, if he could get up, he would get up. He doesn't want to sit there and have elbows rain down on his face. So it's always crazy. And one of the things I'll give you, advice I give to you that Hoff gave to me, is learn to kind of separate and understand people that don't know.
Sure.
You have to let it go. It's like arguing with the wall over there, or my ex-wife, same thing. There's no kind of really arguing with them. So
man, I figured out after that Bellator fight. So that kind of like, especially in a small country town like I'm from, that was huge news. I went on TV and knocked out an Olympic wrestler. That was crazy. So everybody's like wanting to talk to me about fighting. They want to buy me drinks or wanting to do this. They're like all trying to just like come up to me. And I learned real quick, like I tried to like get into detail about some fighting, and like none of them understood what I meant, but they were like fans of UFC. Now I'm just like, oh, yeah, I'm supposed to be fighting next month, I hope, man. I'll let you know something. Just check my Instagram.
That's what dude, 2 things. Me and Hoffa have this thing where when we have weird people that come up, he acts like he doesn't speak English. And I speak very little Portuguese. I can understand, but I speak none. And when I say understand, it's still limited. But like he'll kick in to start speaking to me in Portuguese when it's weird or whatever. And so I'll just say same thing you said. Hey, he said in Portuguese, follow me on Instagram and I'll get the message to him.
Yeah.
And then part 2 to that is, it's funny because people always are chasing clout. And so people be like, oh, I know. So we were sitting, it's funny. I was in Austin last month. It was me, Hoffa, his oldest, or his son, Hafinha, and then his youngest son, Hadra. And we were sitting at Whole Foods and we were eating. And so I had one of the UFC shirts on. And so we were sitting there eating, everything was cool. And Hoffa got up to go somewhere. And the guy beside us leans over and he goes, hey, does that guy fight in the UFC? And I was like, yeah, he does. He goes, oh, I know that guy. Okay, cool. He was like, isn't his name Javier dos Santos? Bro, not even in the realm of that's his name. That's his name. But that's the same thing. People will like clout chase and whatever, and they have no idea. I stopped even engaging in conversations with people about fighting just because it's like, they're like, oh, he should have done this. He should have done that. Oh, okay, cool. Well, how many fights have you fought? 0? Okay, cool. Yeah, it's always easier for people to talk about who, what, when, where, why when they hadn't done it.
Man, so, that I was just thinking about like talking about fighting and stuff, and all the people that was coming to me after the Bellator fight. Man, that was super cool to like have that fame for a minute, but like it really kind of like, I don't feel like I've heard a lot of people talk about this. I've heard 1 or 2, but man, it almost kind of like not depressed me, but like it made me to where like I'm very like detached from everybody. Like when I go in public places, like it just messed me up to the point where I'm like, I don't know if any of y'all are really my friends. Like y'all are all kissing my ass, but like, are you my friend or are you trying to be like, oh, I'm hanging out with Christian Echols and Cullman, like, because that's the big thing. Like if like I go to the bar, like people will be like trying to play buddy, and I'm just like, oh yeah, man, I'm fighting January 20th, and then I turn around, it just like messed up my trust with people. I just like don't know who's real, who's fake, and like it was super cool with all the Bellator stuff, but not cool.
No, I think it wakes you up. I talk to Hop all the time. I couldn't live that life.
I couldn't imagine being really famous. Like if I was Conor McGregor and it was like that everywhere.
Bro, it's like that with Hoffa, man. It is so annoying. And I'm from Montgomery, so I'm naturally paranoid over everything. You just have to be where I'm from. Even though I've lived in SoCal now like 7 years, still my mindset is a Montgomery mindset. So if somebody's peeking around the corner, we're about to either get robbed or shot. So we need to scurry on out here. But so like when we go places like me and Hoff, dude, it'll be Target, Walmart. The airport, it doesn't matter where it is. And people are peeking around or they're like, oh, and it took me a while to get used to it. And sometimes like I have to pull him kind of out of it. And we do the whole don't speak English deal because it gets super weird. But for you, I don't think I would let it make me overthink it. I would just learn to take people and things for what they're worth.
Go ahead.
You'll know when people authentically want to be your friend and when people, especially in Alabama, because we don't have, you know what I mean? Like I live in SoCal. It took me forever. Like the other day I was up here and Kevin Hart was at the stoplight next to me. I got the pleasure of meeting and becoming friends with Mike Tyson. And so it's like being from a small town in Alabama, which Montgomery is considered a bigger town, but now looking at the scope of things, it's still a small town. Yeah. Do you find that difficult, like when you travel outside or when you're inside? Like, how do you differentiate the two?
What do you mean?
Like, how do you differentiate who's there for you or who is actually, or have you learned, like with Hoffa, he learned, like we have a small circle of people that we deal with, and that's kind of it.
Yeah, man, I've gotten to where, like, if you're not a sponsor, you're not like, so I got a guy that I live with, he just walked through here and grabbed a popsicle a minute ago. Yeah. He's been one of my best friends for a long time. I'm living with him right now. As a fighter at the regional level, you don't make a whole lot of money, and he's kind of like, "Hey, man, look, let me help you out." And like he's doing a lot of great things to help me out. But if you're not him, you're not one of my sponsors, you're not my immediate family. Like, I don't really like talk to people. I don't really like try to socialize a whole lot. So I just like, if I'm going to meet you and you have to like approach me, and then there's going to be like a little bit of a process where I'm like kind of like figuring you out. Like, I don't know.
It's reading them like you're reading a fighter.
Exactly. And I'll sit there and like, I'll let them talk. I'll let them talk to other people. And like, I'll just kind of listen, like see what they say. And then I'm like, I don't think you're the one. Or I'm like, hey, you're pretty damn cool.
Look, with me, there's no gray area. It's either one or the other. And I've always been one that like I'm quick to differentiate between who's cap and who's not. And so I kind of divert them off to the side. But speaking of your career, I know you started off with a couple of tough losses. And then you switched fight camps, and you were on an absolute tear, winning 4 fights in a row, including the shot heard round the world, Bellator 289, Pat Downey. How was that when you first got the call? How was that about fighting in Bellator?
So I was at a training session. And this is going to sound crazy, but I was at a training session, 10th Plant Decatur. Get done rolling, open mat. I walk over to the side. I grab my phone, and I look at it. And do you know Matt Elkin's brother, Jake?
Yeah.
He's a great wrestling coach. He was a great wrestler himself. So he knows who Pat Downey is. And I grabbed my phone, and I was like, this lady on Facebook Messenger had messaged me and said, hey, how would you like to fight for Bellator MMA.co or .whatever? And I was like, I would love to fight for Bellator.
But first you probably thought, is this cap or not?
That's what I was thinking. I was like, this ain't real. This is some kind of fake page. So I messaged back. I was like, I would love to fight for Bellator. Sat my phone down. I come back. Well, we're looking for an opponent for Pat Downey on December 9th. And I'm like, I know Pat Downey. He out wrestled Gordon Ryan, and I did all kinds of crazy stuff. He's a wild man. And I was like, that's a tough fight. So I shot my coach the screenshot, and I was like, hey, bro, we just got offered this. So he did the talking for me. It was before I was with a manager. I didn't have Eric on my team yet.
Yeah.
And shot it to my coach, and I was just mind blown. Like, Bellator messaged me on Facebook to get me a fight? That's crazy. I feel like I'm talking to, like, Strikeheart or something. But, it was just, like, mind blowing that I was fixing to fight Pat Downey the whole time. Like, the whole fight camp, I'm just like that was the only fight camp I have ever just practiced constantly being on my back. It was just like stay on my back, like start out on my back, have a big guy on top of me, my main training partner Travis. He's a freaking beast.
Yeah.
He's in my guard on top, starting on top, and he's just trying to beat on me. And dude, when that fight happened, I was ready to be. When he took me down the first time, I was like, shit, boy, I've been practicing.
Everyday thing. So let me ask you, leading up to the fight, I think you were like a minus, or like plus 260. He was like a minus 300. How did that feel to you going? I mean, we're from a small town, so people don't really know. But like, how did that feel? Did it feel like a slap in the face to you? How did that feel to you? Did you know the odds?
Yeah, so when they messaged me, I knew immediately. I watched, what's Jack Swagger from WWE?
Yeah.
I watched him go to Bellator and fight. I watched him get all his fights padded. I watched all these other guys, they pad up and just get these guys good. So I was like, okay, I know the score here. Like, my job is to come in, get my ass whooped, go on about my day.
Or so they thought.
Yeah, that's what they thought. And that's what their game plan was, and I knew that. So my coach knew that too. Everybody knew that. Everybody was like, dude, you're stupid for taking this fight. Even Eric. Eric was like, dude, Matt, Christian's going to get taken down and get TKO'd. This guy's a beast. He's the new up-and-comer. He's hot. Like, he's a great wrestler. And then, dude, I knew, I was a plus 960 underdog, which is like, I'm like number 11 or number 14 in the history of MMA odds. I'm at number 11 or 14 of highs. And like, I'm not a big bettor. So like, when I hear plus 960, I don't know if that's an underdog or if that's somehow, I don't know what's going on. So I'm like, shit, they want me to lose? I don't really care. But no, it didn't really play a huge factor being a dog. Every time I have an opponent, when I'm in the gym, like, I was talking about earlier, going to that dark place and wanting to quit and like having to push through it. Man, when I get to that dark place, whoever my next opponent is, I'm like, fuck Pat Downey. Like, he ain't working harder than me. Like, I'll get to that point to where I'm about to fall out and I'm like, hell no. I just keep ripping the row machine or the ski machine or the bike, whatever I'm doing. Or in the middle of a round, I got a guy on my back because I'm starting to tire out from a dog round or something. Yeah. Like, I'll just start thinking about my opponent. I'm like, he's not going to outwork me. Screw that. I take off, dude. I just get this, like, surge of energy where, I don't know, it's crazy. But, the whole entire fight camp, I was just like, beat Pat Downey at all costs.
So let me ask you this. Did you see it or notice anything? Are you a big, like, film guy, or are you – see, like me, I'll be honest with you. The only matches I've ever lost was me actually going in and break. And not that I'm judging people that break down film, because some people are good at it, some people like doing it, some people don't. I have what I call controlled chaos. I'm poor white trash from Montgomery, Alabama. So you go into planning too much. Education wasn't a top thing in my household. So every fight that I've gone into that I've watched film and I plan to do this and I plan to do that, I've lost every fight. The ones that I go in there, it's funny when I go to IBJJF events before I got hurt, I started kind of mind fucking people. And so like, it's funny because if you've done an IBJJF event, which I know you have, because I remember I'll go into in a minute, but guys are always they're like they just got out on parole. And I'm like, bro, stop. Like, you ain't about this life. Like, I mean, see, I'm from Montgomery, Alabama. Like, you're from, like, whatever part of wherever you're from. You are not really about that life because you signed up for a jiu-jitsu competition. Please don't act hard. So I started mind fucking people in. So, like, I think it was Worlds, I'd say 3 years ago, maybe 4, because it was before COVID. And I would know who I was going against because I would see the bracket and I would see them. And I was like, oh my gosh, how's it going, guy? I'm Clinton. We're going to be fighting the first fight over here on mat 5. I just want to say it's an honor and congratulations. And I could see in their mind, like, they're like, I'm going to fuck this guy up. And then when I touched the mat, it's funny, Popolka that I trained with, Aubrey that I trained with, when I came off the mat, I won Worlds. And he said, man, I don't think I've ever seen anybody flip a switch the way that you flip a switch. And I just go into, like, I can't think. So going back to the original question, do you break down or did you notice or see something in the fight camp that made you land the shot? Or was it just like, hey, I'm from Alabama, we're going to go out here and slang it back?
So I'm a heavy wrestler. And like, I don't know if you know this or not, but like when you're good at something,
you stick with it.
Well, like typically you like, okay, I'm good at Kimuras, right?
Yeah.
I've been Kimura one time at Kill Cliff. I got Kimura by a guy that's a heavyweight. But besides that, I haven't been Kimura in like 3 or 4 years because I'm so just like, I know what you're doing. Like if you're reaching towards my shoulder in any type of way at all, or I feel your body kind of like hip out from bottom guard or wherever, I know what you're about to shoot, and I'm about to armbar you. I got a counter, I jump over the guard, and I did it in a competition the other day against a black belt. So I just know like what's going on. Well, with wrestling, I know what your body language is. And the first one, I knew it was coming. I threw like an overhand right, and it hit him in the shoulder. And then I knew he wasn't going to box because I seen a video of him bouncing around the day before the fight. That Matty Betts guy, I don't know if you know who that is.
Yeah.
He posted a video of him, and he's jumping around. His hands are doing this, and I'm like, "Oh, bud, you come at me afterwards." And man, I just seen that video, and I was like, his hands are ass. Well, we get in the fight, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna let this big uppercut out the gate. Probably won't knock him out because he's fresh. He's a big old boy, but I can let him know, like, hey, you don't get to come in the center line for free, and that's what you got to do with all wrestlers.
Yeah.
Well, I fucking zipped one down the middle when he shot, and it just barely missed him, and like grazed by his chin. And he picked me up, double legged me, got on top, and like I started like creating pressure, and I started like holding him to me is what it was. I got a wizard, and I grabbed the back of his head while he was in my guard, and I was like holding him tight so he would be forced to make space to do anything. Like if he wanted to advance in any type of form, he had to make space.
Yeah.
So whenever he went to make space, I started pushing with my legs and kicking. Threw a couple up kicks. I think I hit him with one. I got some good pictures of me like completely off the ground with my arms flat, trying to kick him. But man, when I stood up to the feet, or whenever I went to stand up, he like grabbed a headlock and yanked me in the floor. No, I went for a triangle is what it was. He rolled me, headlocked me, threw me to the floor, got me in the headlock, and like he rolled me, and I was about to tap. I was on the verge of like tap or like fight this out. And like, man, it goes back to what we said about my daughter earlier. I'll never forget I was in that cage, and I had promised, not even promised, but like, you know, I told my daughter, hey, when daddy gets back from this trip, I'm going to buy you whatever you want for Christmas.
Yeah.
And, dude, I went out there, and like, that was in my mind. Like, hey, my little girl, like, this is riding on her. Yeah, me keeping my word to her. And he's like choking the piss out of me. You can see a picture. I got a picture of my face is purple. I'm just like slammed up in the corner. And I popped his elbow off, and I was like, hell yeah. I threw a knee, and like, then he tried to shoot underhooks. I like rolled my underhooks and pushed him off to the side. And from there, dude, I looked at him, and like, he gave me this look. His tongue was hanging out. He was like that. And I was like, boy, it's my turn, son.
Yeah.
And I knew he was shot. And the only thing he would do, he loves body locks. His favorite wrestling move is a high body lock trip or like a body lock lift and just turn. And I knew that. So every time he would go to like fish the underhooks, and a lot of people didn't see this, so I explained it to him what I was doing.
Yeah.
But like every time he goes to engage, I would like throw a punch, and then I would fish for underhooks. So like when they pummeling, you know?
Yeah.
So I pummel, turn. He couldn't take me down. I was like spamming the uppercut. I threw it like 3 times. And I was watching him, and he was nervous about that uppercut because he wanted that shot, but he can't shoot because if he does get hit with that, it's gonna hurt real bad. And I seen him watching it, and I was like, I set him up. I pumped the right hand, and he covered up this way, and I threw a looping left hook, and it was like a hopping hook, and it connected beautifully. Dropped him in the floor, and from there it was just me, just peppering his ass. And like I said, I know wrestling, and I know that the number one defense wrestling is something right down the middle, just as hard as you can throw it. And I felt him at the last little spot where I hit him with that uppercut. I felt him reach out for his underhooks. He's done it like 4 times in a row now. When he reached out, I was like, hell no. And I just brought it from the
you hit him with that Mike Tyson. Oh, yeah.
I hit it with everything I had, dude. When I
didn't have a voice for 3 days after that fight because I was yelling. So let me ask you. I know from that fight, you were nominated for the 2023 Upset of the Year. You just went to the award show. How was that?
Man, it was super cool. It was. I got to get like it was a VIP experience. They had. Somehow I ended up in a limo. We walked out of the award show's after party, and like I'm not a big drinker, but I'm in Vegas with my sponsor. Dustin Poirier's kicking it. He's like me and him sitting here having a 20-minute conversation. I'm freaking meeting all these famous people, and I'm just in a room where I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna enjoy my life a little bit. You know, I'm gonna sit down and smell the roses and just like really enjoy this. So I had some drinks at the open bar. It was free drinks. You got to take that. It'd be rude not to. And it was just such a good time. I got to meet Aljamain Sterling. I got to meet a shit ton of people. Matt Riddle from the WWE. He was Randy Orton's partner, apparently. I didn't know him before the thing, but man, that was the coolest experience of my life. Like I went and trained at Kill Cliff with a bunch of. I talked to Kamaru Usman, Ong Lasang from Kill Cliff. I've talked to Henry Hoop, all these legends down at Kill Cliff. I went and trained with them, earned their respect. And like became friends with these people. Like we still messaged on social media, but like that experience out there was just like it wasn't a fighter vibe. It was like a chill vibe. Like, hey, I'm hanging out with Dustin Poirier. I'm not sparring him. I'm not in the gym like forcing myself in this situation. I'm like kicking it. And it was just like the coolest experience of my life. And I can't wait to continue to do stuff like that. You know, as I climb to that next level, I know there's gonna be a lot more of that goes on, and I just got to get my way there, man.
How did it feel? I know for me, how did it feel being a good old boy from Alabama, being with all these people that like we see on TV? Because like I said, again, we've had Eric, we've had, Walt, but like not really. How was it being a good old boy from Alabama in the middle of UFC legends and legends in the game?
Man, that was the coolest part. Oh, and I got to meet Herb Dean. Can't forget Herb Dean.
I got to hang out with Herb Dean last time when we were in Vegas. Super cool guy.
But yeah, I mean, that's the coolest part. Like, nobody from Cullman, Alabama has done stuff like this. Like, my dad was the closest thing, and he was a really good fighter, but he never, like, went anywhere with it. He didn't go out to Las Vegas. He didn't go train anywhere. And I just kind of feel like, I don't want to say, like, not like pioneer, but like I feel like I'm like reaching out to these big stages for the first time from Cullman, and like I want to I got buddies. I got one buddy from Cullman named Perez that trains, and like I'd like to. My game plan right now, as being a part of the team in Birmingham, I want to like reach out and do all these cool things and like create these connections for the guys that I train with. So like I can like be like, oh, you need help getting this? Here's this. Oh, hey, listen, I'll be in Las Vegas next week. You know, like I'll be hanging out with so and so. I can try to pull a string, get you a sponsorship or something. Just little stuff like that I want to do, like with my game. And as my journey unfolds, man, I'm doing more and more cool stuff. And like that's what's so cool about chasing your dream as a fighter, especially with the luck that I've had. So when I say luck, the hard work that I put in that has caused my luck. Dude, it's just like as I'm more successful, the more cool stuff I get to do, the more stories I got, the more friends I make, the more I've got famous people messaging me on Instagram. Like, we're just like, we're not friends, but like they know who I am. Everywhere I go, there's somebody that's like, aren't you that guy that knocked out Pat Downey? Even out of Alabama. When I went to South Florida, Kamaru Usman, all those guys, everybody in the gym I say cornrows because it's the biggest name. But like they all knew who I was by that guy that knocked out Pat Downey. And I just think that's so cool that like
I think it's cool that you stay grounded. Like I could tell from your personality. I don't know if you remember this, but it was many years ago. I remember you were still a youngin, and it was me, you, and your dad, and we were in Vegas. It was when he was competing with Gracie Baja, Birmingham, and we were talking about, and I asked you what you wanted to do. And you said, you know, my dream is one day I want to be a fighter. And so it always resonated with me. And I've always, in the background, always been a big fan of pulling for you because I know your roots with your dad. And bigger than that is a lot of guys get a taste of the fame like that you have gotten, and they become straight douchebags. I see it. I know it. I see guys in the UFC that are straight. I ain't going to call nobody out today. I ain't going to take them to church on a Friday or a Thursday. But, you know, you stay humble, you stay working, and you stay true to yourself and your daughter. So for me, you've got a huge fan. Speaking of your career, I know this last fight, your first L in a while. I know you had an injury leading up to the fight that ended up costing you in that fight. So where are you at with the rehab? Where are you at with all of that? Is everything good to go?
Yeah. So what happened with that fight? I had a broke leg before the fight. So I broke my fibula, which is the non-weight bearing bone. So like, you can walk around on it, and I trained on it. Yeah. Like, leading up to the fight, it got injured, and I had to take 2 weeks off from sparring. But like after that 2 weeks was up, I was right back to it, and I was like, I've got to spar. I got to get ready. Yeah. And I only had like a 4-week fight camp. Yeah. It was a short notice fight, and against a very tough opponent. Anyways, I get injured, and you know, we talked about girls being the devil for us. Man, I have a little bit of jealousy issues and like kind of control issues with like relationships and stuff. So that's why I broke off my last relationship. I had to get out of that because it's like my dream or a regular life and have like that stuff. So I've decided to cut girls out of my life because I'm so dedicated to fighting that I will not stop for nothing. Like I will make it to the UFC and I will be something. But like, dude, she just like got in my head before this fight. And when I got in that fight, I don't know if you watched it or not. I shot a frantic takedown, like just go.
Well, you could tell. I'll be straight up with you because I keep it 100 all the time. For sure. You could tell your mindset wasn't there because again, I know you because I've watched all of your fights. I've kept up with all of those things, so I know these things. So I knew when you that first frantic takedown. I felt like you were rushing and that you weren't in your mindset. So I kind of knew. And then when you came out about the injury, it all kind of made sense to me of everything.
Well, see, I have this thing where when I was an amateur, I had a real bad problem. And I lost to Trayshawn because of this, and I lost to Derek Overstreet because of this. I can hit hard and I can be a dog. Yeah. But like I have this problem with when I was an amateur, I would show you that for the first minute. It was a blitzing pace, boy. I was coming. But then I would start to tire out. And then I figured it out. I was like, I got with Matt. Matt talked to me. And me and Matt set a game plan. Before every fight, he's like, hey, chill the fuck out. And like, I chill out. And I'm in the cage. I breathe, stay calm. Okay, so we did that. Me and Matt had a little falling out before the fight because I was just like having a panic attack in the back, bro. I literally had a full-on, my coach thinks.
And women, bro.
Yeah, and I just like, we didn't have no kind of routine before the fight, dude. We just like, I walked out there, I was mad at my girl. I'm mad at my coach at the moment. I'm like, there's a big-ass dude right there, and I'm about to we're going to get it on. Yeah. Fuck it. I'm here now. And, man, I started throwing the bombs, and I went amateur style. Like, I went back to before that 4-fight win streak when I was killing it. I went back to that guy. And, like, I look back now, and I'm like, That's why I cut all distractions out of my life. I'm back hungry again. Like that last loss, I just told my coach yesterday, dude, every time I start fucking working out and I go hard, I think about Keenan Patterson, the last guy that beat me. Yeah. I want to run that back so bad. I want to let him know, like, that wasn't me, dog. Yeah. If I've got my mindset right, I'm calm, I'm cool, collected, I'm smart, and, like, I do set up a game plan for guys. And, yeah, this just got me fired up talking about I want to fight him, bro, so bad. I want to run that back.
I'll tell you this. And this is something you alluded to earlier. This is one piece of advice that I will give you from talking to Hoffa and knowing guys. Take your time and enjoy the process.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Realize you don't have to fight every dog. It's okay to get ring rust off. It's okay to do all of those things. Don't let a lot of people in this business get to this. We got to go 0 to Chris Brown right out the gate. We got to go fight for a title. No, like embrace all of those things, all of those little trials and tribulations will go towards your longevity as being a champion, which personally I think you will eventually be, just because you do have the right mindset. It's just all about staying in that right mindset. So
my problem with him is you don't get to whoop my ass for free. I'm coming back to see you. Like, look, you whoop my ass, number 2. Let's get
it. You gotta. It always comes full circle. Go eat somewhere else, and then you come back to him and you pay back. Get that payback.
My hopes, and I've talked to some other fighters. They're like, "Hey, that'd be sick." I'd like to win like 2 more, 3 more fights over the next little stretch. Dana White Contender Series hits. They're like, hey, Keenan Patterson versus Christian Echols for the Contender Series. And then whoop his ass on TV instead of UFC Fight Pass.
To get onto the Contender? Ooh, yeah. that would be super, super saucy. And I think adding some more dubs pads your career, pad your stats for going towards the show, because they're going to.
That's what we got right now.
Yeah.
We got 2 fights lined up right now. This month, January, and then March. March, the guy's like 3 or 4-0, I think. So it's going to be kind of a step up. It'll be this guy I'm fighting this time.
Speaking of that, when's your next? You got to fight. You just got a call in yesterday.
So I got information from him last week. I've been waiting to hear back from him. I just got confirmation that he accepted yesterday.
Okay, sweet. Who you fighting and where?
Dowen. Oh my goodness. Dowen Pugh. I think it's Dowen Dangerous Pugh or something like that.
Yeah. He's
not nothing to brag about. He's a comeback fight, you know. He's knocking the ring rust off, getting in there, logging flight hours. So so this is what our game plan is, to step it up, you know, like okay, January, come back, log flight hours, get the rust off, get ready to whoop some ass. March, go in there against a 3 or 4-0 guy, whoop his ass, and then that looks good because he's a prospect. Then we step back in there with one other guy, hopefully, and then probably hit the Contender Series.
So January, you're fighting where?
Dothan, Alabama.
January 9th, and then March, you're fighting where?
The All In Combat in Louisiana. You know Brandon Allen?
Well, yeah, what part of Louisiana?
I have no clue.
Is it Baton Rouge? Probably Baton Rouge or something like that.
I think it's close.
Yeah, I'll find out, because I think I'm supposed to be there. What I might do is I'm supposed to go to Hoffa's. He's fighting March 9th in Miami. I'm supposed to fly out to Austin, Texas. What I might do is try to shoot across to try to catch a fight if it's going to be in Louisiana. That's not that far.
I might be down there. I did a camp at Killcliff with one of the guys that I was supposed to fight